In the Upanishads, it is said that the various energies of the Lord are working to create, destroy, and maintain. These inconceivable varieties of energy are stored in the bosom of the Lord. As people generally say, God is all-powerful. That prowess is represented by Mahalakshmi, the reservoir of all energies, who is situated on the bosom of the transcendental form of the Lord. The yogi who can meditate perfectly on that spot, on the transcendental form of the Lord, can derive many material powers which comprise the 8 perfections of the yoga system. It is stated herein that the beauty of the neck of the Lord enhances the beauty of the Kaustuba gem rather than vice versa. The gem itself becomes more beautiful because it is situated on the neck of the Lord. A yogi is therefore recommended to meditate upon the Lord's neck. The Lord's transcendental form can either be meditated upon in the mind or placed in a temple in the form of a statue and decorated in such a way that everyone can contemplate it. Temple worship, therefore, is meant for persons who are not so advanced that they can meditate upon the form of the Lord. There is no difference between constantly visiting the temple and directly seeing the transcendental form of the Lord. There is no difference between constantly visiting the temple and directly seeing the transcendental form of the Lord. They are of equal value. The advantageous position of the yogi is that he can sit anywhere in a solitary place and meditate upon the form of the Lord. A less advanced person, however, has to go to the temple, and as long as he does not go to the temple, he is unable to see the form of the Lord. Either by hearing, seeing, or meditating, the objective is the transcendental form of the Lord. There is no question of voidness or impersonalism. The Lord can bestow the blessings of transcendental pleasure upon either the visitor of the temple, the meditator yogi, or one who hears about the Lord's transcendental form from scriptures like the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. There are 9 processes of executing devotional service, of which smaranam or meditation is one. Yogis take advantage of the process of smaranam, whereas bhakti yogis take special advantage of the process of hearing and chanting. So here in this verse, Kapila Deva describing to his mother about the process of dhyana by a Ashtanga yogi. He began how the yogi should meditate from the lotus feet of the Lord and all the way up gradually. And now in this verse he has come to the Vaksha Adhivasam. Vakshaha, the chest of the Lord. And Rishabhasya Mahavibhute, this chest of the Lord is the abode of all the Mahavibhuti, all the transcendental potencies of the Lord. And those transcendental potencies are, and that is referring to Mahavishnu, who resides here as the reservoir of all of these transcendental potencies. And so Vakshodhivasam Rishabhasya Mahavibhute, Rishabhasya of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord. And then what happens? Pumsam manonayana nirvrutim adadhanam. Manas and nayana, eyes, nirvrutim adadhanam. When one meditates, when the yogi meditates on the Vakshodhivasam Rishabhasya Mahavibhute, his mind and eyes are captivated by nirvrutim adadhanam. The Lord bestows nirvrutim, transcendental pleasure, to such a person. And what about his kantam? So gradually he's going upwards from vaksha to kanta, the neck. And kantam cha kaustubha maner adhibhushanartham. And from his neck hangs the kaustubha mani, the celebrated kaustubha mani. And this kaustubha mani, there is a small change here. Unlike what we do, we wear ornaments and we dress up so that we look good. But this is Vishnu. He's already the Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasa Shriya Samagrashriya. He has complete beauty, unlimited beauty. All beauty resides in him. So what is happening? What is the Kaustuba gem doing here? It's going to, for his beauty he is wearing? No. He's not wearing for his beauty. He is wearing that so that Kaustubha Mani can become beautiful. So he's actually all beautiful. Kantam cha Kaustubha Maner Adhibhushanartham. Maner Adhibhushanartham. Kaustubha Maner Adhibhushanartham. So that the money becomes bhushana. For that purpose he is wearing Kuryan Manasi Akhila Loka Namaskrutasya. Kuryan Manasi. In this way the yogi should meditate in his mind that Lord who is Akhila Loka Namaskrutasya, one who is worshipable or worshipped in all the planetary systems by everyone. So the yogi should then meditate on the chest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vakshaha, the abode of Mahalakshmi, Goddess Mahalakshmi, Adhivasam, Mahavibhute Adhivasam. The Lord's chest is the source of all transcendental pleasure, Nirvritim, for the mind, Mana, and full satisfaction for the eyes, Nayana, Mano Nayana Nirvritim Adhadhanam. The yogi should then imprint on his mind, Kuryan Manasi, the neck of the personality of Godhead, Kantamcha, who is adored by the entire universe, Akhila Loka Namaskrutasya. The neck of the Lord serves to enhance the beauty of the Kaustuba gem, Kaustubha Maner Adhibhushanartham, which hangs on his chest. So here in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out all of these transcendental features of the personality of Godhead. And important thing here, Prabhupada points out here, either by hearing, seeing or meditating, the objective is the transcendental form of the Lord. There is no question of voidness or impersonalism. If you see in the ladder of yoga ladder, there is the stage of jnana, and below that there is the stage of karma, when one wants to enjoy sense gratification, but under some regulations given by the varnashrama system, and then gradually one becomes enlightened. And when one is enlightened, generally that stage of jnana results in not much of details of the transcendental reality, but it is more of detachment, understanding that this material world of forms, relationships and activities are all temporary, and there is something more than this that one should aspire for. So at that stage, generally, there is no clarity of the understanding of the transcendental form of the Lord, but it is more often of a transcendental reality. And the impersonalists generally dwell in that aspect of the yoga, jnana yoga, and they mostly conclude about impersonalism. And the next stage of the jnana, after the jnana, is the dhyana. And in the dhyana stage, the important aspect that the yogi begins to understand and the revelation begins is about the transcendental form of the Lord. That is why the yogi is being trained and being advised that how he should meditate gradually on the different forms, different aspects of the transcendental form of the Lord. That's the emphasis. Either by hearing, seeing, or meditating, the objective is the transcendental form of the Lord. This is the this is the Vedic literature's gradual introduction into the transcendental form of the Lord. Sometimes people say this form of the Lord, name of the Lord as Vishnu, and Vishnu having different leelas. These are just generally the impersonalists say that this is all in the Puranas. But for us, the most important thing is the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutras, all of that. In that, you see, there is this form is actually for not so spiritually elevated people. But actually, that is not true. Even in the Upanishads, there is description of the transcendental form of the Lord. Just like in the Ishopanishad, Pushan Ekarshe Surya Prajapatya Vyuha Rashmin Samuha Tejo Yatte Rupam Kalyanathamam. The Upanishad is saying Vyuha Rashmin Samuha. That Lord, there is a Rashmin, Samuha Rashmin. There is a transcendental brilliance and effulgence coming from him, which actually blinds a spiritualist, a transcendentalist who is trying to see. So Vyuha means please, clear. Vyuha Rashmim Samuha Tejo Yatte Rupam Kalyanathamam. So that I can see your transcendental form. Rupam. Tejo Yatte Rupam Kalyanathamam. Here the Upanishad has used the word Kalyanathamam. This is just like the word Guhyatamam. Guhyatara, Guhyat. In the same way, Kalyana, Kalyanatara, and Kalyanathamam is the superlative. Auspicious, more auspicious, and the most auspicious. So, Tejo Yatte Kalyanathamam Rupam. So even the Upanishads talk about transcendental form of the Lord. It's not that only the Puranas talk about it. No, even in the Upanishads there are many, many places which talks about the transcendental form of the Lord. So here another aspect, Srila Prabhupada is making a very interesting comparison between the dhyana yogi who is doing all of this meditation, trying to fix his mind on the different transcendental features of the Lord, and bhakti. Because bhakti is not only the highest, but also very simple and easy to practice. And that is why Srila Prabhupada is bringing in the concept of the deity worship in a temple. So we see here how a dhyana yogi is meditating on the different forms of the Lord, sitting in a solitary place, practicing strict brahmacharya, all of those different regulations and all of that. And he's trying to fix the mind on the transcendental features of the form of the Lord. Whereas in the process of bhakti, there is the archana, which is the temple worship. And one can come to a temple, and in the temple, the form of the Lord, as described in the Vedic literatures, is made of stone, metal, etc. And by a transcendental process, the Lord is invited to manifest his presence in the prana pratishta ceremony. And from then on, the Lord begins to manifest his presence, and the Lord is present there in the temple. And so even a common man can come and see the form of the Lord and meditate on the form of the Lord. And in this way, even a common person, a simple person, can advance in spiritual life. There is one verse in the few chapters before this, and Prabhupada in the purport uses one expression, very interesting expression, imperceptibly liberated. If you all remember, in the Mangalarti reading, we read a small paragraph of this purport, from this purport, where Prabhupada talks about imperceptibly liberated. That's what the deity worship. Actually here, this verse is about, this is also spoken by Kapila Muni, Thair dharshaniya avayavair udhara vilasa hasekshita vama suktaihi hruthatmano hruta pranamscha bhaktir anicchato me gatim anavim prayungte. Prabhupada is very careful in translating and explaining all of these verses. Anuvim prayungte. Anu means atom. Anu also means very fine or subtle. Here, anuvim prayungte, me gatim anuvim prayungte, Lord's transcendental position, state of liberation. Me gatim anavim prayungte, one subtly attains that. Anichatopi, even though one is not interested in, one is not consciously trying. Just like sometimes we see in our temple, parents come and they are paying obeisance, and the children, they are very playful. They are not interested in paying obeisance and all that. They are just imitating the father and the mother. When the parents are paying obeisance, they are also paying obeisance. But then they raise up and look here and there. Children, after all, very distracted. But they are paying obeisance like that. So anicchato, they have no desire. Anicchato me gatim anuvim prayungte. But that soul, the child, is making advancement. Anivim prayungte. Imperceptibly, the child is subtly, little by little, the child is also making spiritual progress. That is what is being. In fact, we see many times people coming up in our temple, and common people. And when they come to the temple in front of the Lord, they close their eyes and they are praying to the Lord. So at that time they have set aside everything else, all their problems and different things, and for a few seconds, actually that is bringing tremendous spiritual benefit for that living entity. So that is why he said, here it is said, Hruthatmano, Hruta pranams, their minds are captivated, their consciousness is captivated. Prana, Hruta pranams cha bhaktir, anichchato me gatim, anuvim prayungto. I remember once we had a governor of our state coming to the temple. So I was bringing her to the temple, and she also had her two grown-up daughters who were living abroad. They were also coming very well dressed up and all of that. So I was bringing the governor to the main temple hall. As soon as she came to the main temple hall, she stopped there, and these two daughters who were behind her, they were coming for the first time to the temple. The moment they saw, wow! You see, this is actually the principle of deity worship, the temple worship, which Srila Prabhupada so nicely captured and presented it. The temple is supposed to be gorgeous. The deities are supposed to be nicely decorated, so that even common people, Hrutatmano, Hruta pranamscha bhaktir, anichchato me gatim, anuvim prayungte. So when they come and say, wow, actually that soul is making spiritual advancement. They are seeing, oh. Because Prabhupada explains, the conditioned soul thinks all opulence should be used for my enjoyment. I should be the center of all activities of enjoyment. And when they come and see in a temple that all opulence are used for the Lord's enjoyment, all opulences are pointing to Him, are serving Him, they get stunned by that. And when they see that with that kind of a veneration, actually they have reached a state of liberation. maybe for a few seconds, but at least it is a beginning. So this is the process of bhakti. That's why Kapilada is saying, Thair darshaniya avayavair udhara, exalted, vilasa, hase, ikshitha, vama, sukthaihi, hrutatmano, hruta pranamscha bhaktir, anicchato me gatim, anuvim prayungte. So, deity worship, temple worship, enables even a common man. A yogi may have to sit and meditate for so many years to achieve that. A common man can also very quickly practice this, meditating on the form of the Lord and getting an impression of the form of the transcendental form of the Lord by visiting a temple. See how we see that how bhakti process is actually very sublime, very easy to practice even for a beginner. And Prabhupada has brought out another very interesting feature. We know that bhakti has 9 processes, Navavidha bhakti. This dhyana is actually the smaranam of the Lord. Actually, any process, either jnana or dhyana or karma, any of them, for them to be effective, there has to be a touch of bhakti. If there is no touch of bhakti, achyuta bhava varjita nashobhate. It does not bring about the transcendental effect it is intended to, unless the touch of achyuta bhava, Krishna consciousness, bhakti is present. So the yogis, they are focusing on the smaranam aspect. That is, the smaranam aspect is there in the dhyana process. And in the other processes that generally that bhakti is, that another easy and sublime method is shravana, is kirtanam and chanting and remembering, hearing, smaranam, kirtanam, Vishnu, smaranam. So kirtanam and shravanam are very simple and easy method that the bhakti yogis practice. So this is how the temple worship Prabhupada is comparing here is a very easy and sublime method. And these features of temple worship were very nicely captured and presented in the Krishna consciousness movement by Srila Prabhupada. Once Srila Prabhupada was visiting the temple in Mexico City. So when he arrived in the airport, devotees had made very nice arrangements. He was escorted, like he was received as a VIP, and he was taken to a VIP lounge. Not always Prabhupada would get that kind of a treatment, especially in America, in Europe. And simply because devotees, the people were not familiar with devotees, and they would see Prabhupada usually accompanied by 1 or 2 Westerners, and they would have a shaved head and a shika and orange robes. And so it was all very strange for the Westerners, and they would always look at them with some kind of a suspicion and subject them to a lot of security checks and all that. Not always Srila Prabhupada got that kind of a very treatment that he truly deserves. So, but somehow here in Mexico City, devotees had arranged, and Prabhupada was brought to a VIP lounge, and from there he was driven, and there was a motorcade, and there was police escorts. All of that was very nicely arranged. And then so Prabhupada reached the temple, and then as Srila Prabhupada would do, he would gaze at the deities very, very prayerfully, and the devotees would be doing kirtan, very uproarious kirtan, and in the presence of Prabhupada, it created a very, very surcharged transcendental energy. And then after gazing at the deities, Prabhupada went to his room, and he sat and spoke to the devotees a little bit. And then invariably Prabhupada would ask for Mahaprasadam, because Prabhupada was very keen that how the deity worship is all happening nicely, the offerings are going on nicely. And so they brought Mahaprasadam, and then Srila Prabhupada tasted the prasadam, and he stopped and he said, the exact words, "Prasadam is horrible." He said, deity worship is not up to the mark. So Prabhupada very closely saw deity worship and cooking in a very, very connected manner. So deity worship is not only decoration and all of that. An important aspect of the deity worship is cooking. Prabhupada was not happy. And then he went on to say, and the devotees were doing very good book distribution in Mexico City temple. Then Prabhupada said, the deity worship should be first class as much as the book distribution is. So he wanted to always emphasize that the deity worship and the cooking and the prasadam, all of that happens very nicely. And he would personally pay attention to all of these things so that we take these things very seriously. After a few days of staying in Mexico City, Srila Prabhupada went to another nearby city, Caracas. And there also there were devotees received Prabhupada. Prabhupada came before the deities. And then he went to the room and then he said, "Please bring me Mahaprasadam." And again they brought Mahaprasadam. And he ate the puris and he said, "Puris are terrible." Now we can understand Westerners, where in South America, Venezuela, Caracas, and in those kind of places, devotees had to learn all these things. It might not have been so easy at that time. So devotees were learning. But Srila Prabhupada was emphasizing that how all of these are very important aspects of deity worship, temple worship, so that people can come and have darshan of the Lord and make anuvim prayunkte, megatim anuvim prayunkte. Because deity temple worship is a very important aspect which imperceptibly the living entities can make advancement in Krishna consciousness. Another interesting word in the context of deity worship Prabhupada introduced was, he introduced this expression during a morning walk in Melbourne, Australia. He coined this expression, Krishna anxiety. So he said, in the material world, people are anxious to make money. How I'll make money, how I'll get more position and power and wealth and all of these kind of things. The devotees, on the other hand, are anxious to serve the mission of the Lord. And so, devotees should also be anxious, but not for material enjoyment, but for serving the mission of the Lord. And so, he talked about Krishna anxiety. And then he said, in the spiritual world, such anxiety exists. So it's not that in the spiritual world there is no anxiety. There is, but it is an anxiety. It's a spiritual anxiety. It does not cause stress like the anxiety in the material world would cause, because that's a kind of an ecstasy. So someone may ask, oh my God, here also there is so much anxiety. When we go there to the spiritual world, there also anxiety. So what's the big deal? No. That's a kind of a spiritual ecstasy. It's not like the material world anxiety. And then he said, the deity worship is actually to teach us and bring us to the point of that Krishna anxiety. Just like another important aspect of deity worship that Srila Prabhupada enshrined in ISKCON temples is that how the Mangalarati should happen at this time, offering should happen at this time, the kirtan should happen, waking up of the deities, all of that in a very timely manner, and that puts a lot of the devotees in a lot of anxiety, right? Oh, you have to remain clean, you have to run to the temple, be on, and all other devotees also, not only the pujaris even. We want to be up right there in the Mangalarati when the curtain opens, and we want to be present there. So all of this, it causes a certain kind of I see at 4:14 in the morning, brahmacharya, everyone running, right, on the bridge there from the ashram. So that's anxiety. That's very good. That is Krishna anxiety. And that deity worship brings that Krishna anxiety. And that anxiety is not easy, Krishna anxiety. And then Prabhupada, in that same conversation, he brings up another very interesting philosophical point. Actually, Krishna anxiety that a devotee should cultivate. You see, generally the idea about God in most religions in the world are that God is the Supreme Father and He provides us so that we can live comfortably. We can live happily. So, this concept of God as the Father is not a very elevated concept of God. A more elevated concept of God, Prabhupada explained, is not when you consider God as your Father, but when you consider God as your child and you become the father or mother of God. That is like Mother Yashoda and Nanda. And then Prabhupada went on to explain, Mother Yashoda, always she was anxious about Krishna. Whether Krishna is safe, whether Krishna will go and put his hand in the fire, or some monkey will come and disturb him, or something or the other. She was full of anxiety, Krishna anxiety, always wanting to care for Krishna. And you see, in that understanding that Krishna is the Father and we are all His children, and Father anyway takes care of the children, and so He's going to provide for us. The level of, the intensity of bhakti there is relatively lesser. And in the concept of Vatsalya Rasa, that intensity is much more. So these are the nuances of bhakti that Srila Prabhupada was teaching, that how that Krishna anxiety that Mother Yashoda was feeling, Nanda was feeling, the other gopis were feeling, the elderly gopis, they were always concerned about Krishna's safety. That Krishna anxiety they were having creates a much greater intensity of bhakti. And then the next is the gopis, and their anxiety, their intensity is considered the highest. And especially when Krishna left Vrindavan and went away, their intensity, their anxiety became even more intense. That is why the Viraha Bhakti that the gopis practiced is considered to be the sweetest, the highest, by which Krishna becomes completely captured. So, like this, Srila Prabhupada talked about anxiety in the spiritual world that exists and the Krishna anxiety as devotees we should have. So, in other words, in the Bhagavatam there is another expression, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. There is a certain amount of seriousness. There is a certain amount of intensity that is recommended in our practice of Krishna consciousness. And all of that is facilitated by the deity worship. So, deity worship is simple, it is sublime. Even common people can practice this, but it has also the important advantage of bringing about, if it is properly practiced according to the teachings of the acharyas, then it can bring about that intensity that is expected in a devotee and bring about that Krishna anxiety that I must serve the Lord nicely. I must execute my duties that have been assigned to me nicely. When that kind of an anxiety is there, then it will help us control our mind, control our senses, control our thoughts and emotions. Otherwise, we'll be dragged into material consciousness. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.